Hey everyone, it's Hannah. So today I am going to be doing a book haul video, and I'll also be doing just sort of a mini review of the book that I just finished. Like I said in my last video, you may have noticed I am in a completely different location than my first video. The past week or so I've been moving in to my college apartment, and I'll be here for the remainder of the year. And I've been doing a lot of shopping since I got here, and that is why I now have this giant pile of books that I bought because I have very little self-control. So let's get into the video. The first few books I purchased at a super cute used bookstore. I will link the website below in the description of the video so you can check it out. They're super cute little bookstore. They have a ton of books and they're super cheap. I bought 5 books and the total was about $30, and that was with tax, and I got one big hardcover. So let's start with those books first because those are the books that I bought first. So that's this stack here. First book I have is Salem's Lot by Stephen King. If I do more haul videos in the future, you will probably notice that, first of all, I buy a lot of Stephen King books, and second of all, I buy a lot of Stephen King books specifically from this bookstore that I'm talking about. And that's because this big bookstore has a very big selection of Stephen King books, and they're all super cheap, and I really like Stephen King. But I haven't read a lot of his earlier books, so I don't really like buying those in places like Barnes & Noble because I know that I can get them for way cheaper in a used bookstore. But anyways, I don't even know what this is about, but it looks good and I like Stephen King books, so I picked it up. It was cheap. Basically, yeah, that's why I bought that one. The next book that I found is The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. And before you yell at me watching this video and say, oh my god, Hannah, how did you not already own this book? I did own this book. I read it over 2 years ago now. This is one of the books that I lost in my family's house fire, so I used to own it. I used to own this exact cover, and I really enjoyed this book. It's probably one of my favorite books that I've ever read. Just the entire vibe of the story, I just loved it, and I think the cover is super gorgeous. The reason why I didn't buy it on Amazon after the fire or buy it in another way was just because I couldn't find this cover, and this is the cover that I had, and I really liked it, especially because you have the this little red part that's not actually part of the cover. It's part of the inside cover, and this whole thing, I don't know, I really like this cover, so I wanted to find the exact one. And then when I was in the bookstore in downtown Pullman, which is where I live, I ended up finding this cover, and I was like, oh my god, I have to have it. This was only $7, so actually this was $6. It was only $6 for this. It's beautiful. I love it. Next book I got is one I haven't read before, but I've heard a lot about, and that is The Satanic Verses by Salman Rushdie. I've heard that Salman Rushdie is a really good writer. I've never read anything by them. Apparently this book is really controversial, and so I kind of wanted to pick it up and just see what it's like. And I didn't want to only buy Stephen King books, which is what I mostly had, so I was like, okay, I'll pick up this book, see what I think. So looking forward to reading that one. Next book I have is Water for Elephants by Sarah Gruen. I've read this book before. I actually read it on my Kindle, and I loved it so much that I was like, I really want to own the physical copy, and I only could find it in bookstores where it was expensive, and it wasn't in used bookstores, and so I was kind of holding off on buying it. I read this 3 years ago, so I finally found this in the used bookstore. I think it was $6, and I was like, you know what, I need this. It's so cute. It's such a pretty, it has the striped spine, which I really love. And then the last book that I bought at the used bookstore is this. This is The Tommyknockers by Stephen King. I have also not read this. I do not know what it is about. But whenever I see these, they have kind of a whole back section that's just Stephen King books, And whenever I see like a big hardback, I usually try to take advantage of the fact that they have it. If I haven't read the hardback before, I'll usually try to buy it, because this was only $7, and like when it was originally sold, the retail price was $20. I don't know if I'm going to get to this book this year because it is pretty heavy and substantial, and you might know this if you follow me on Goodreads, which if you don't follow me on Goodreads, but if you follow me on Goodreads, you know I'm trying to read one book per week this year, and so I'm pretty much on track and I've been doing good so far. But now that I'm starting up school again, I'm not going to have as much time to read, so I want to make sure that I'm reading kind of short-ish books, especially if I'm busy. So I will try to read this book, but I'm not sure if I'm going to get to it, basically. So the next 3 books I bought in Barnes & Noble when my friends and I drove up to Spokane this weekend. First book I have for my Barnes & Noble section of this haul is Coraline by Neil Gaiman. If you don't know what Coraline's about, it's about this girl who travels through this door in her family's new apartment, and she goes into another world that is basically identical, but the people who live in it have buttons for eyes. And this was a movie a while back. I'm sure most people are more familiar with the movie than the book. I really liked the movie. I know a lot of people who hated it, including my parents and I think all of my siblings. They really didn't like it because they thought it was just like creepy and weird. I like creepy, weird stuff. Even as a child, I was like, this is so cool. So I didn't actually know it was based on a book until a couple years ago. And I've like almost bought it like 10 times. Like I'll be in a bookstore or go on Amazon and be like, oh my god, I really want to buy Coraline. And then I'm like, no. But this book was 20% off and it's only $8. So I got it for like $6. So I was like, I want this. I actually read this already. It didn't take very long because it's 160 pages. So I read it in like an hour and a half. And obviously I really liked it. It is technically like a children's book, but I like it because it's like familiar to me because I know the story, because I actually watched the movie when I was a kid. So I was like, I have to read this, and I really liked it. Next book that I got at Barnes & Noble is Artemis by Andy Weir or Andy Weir. I still don't know how to pronounce this guy's last name. I'm sorry. But if you don't know, Andy Weir is the author of The Martian, which is one of my all-time favorite books. It's definitely my favorite sci-fi book. And I noticed that he came out with this book. I don't know exactly when it came out, but I remember seeing it when it came out. And I read the synopsis, and the synopsis is what kind of stopped me from buying it in the first place, because I was unsure if it was going to live up to The Martian, and I still kind of feel that way. But when I was in Barnes & Noble, this happened to be on one of those tables that was like buy 2 books get the 3rd free, and so I was like, I love that deal, so I might as well buy this one because I've been looking to buy it for a while, and they have it in paperback now, so I was like, I'm gonna buy it. So as far as I can tell, it's about some woman who lives on the moon, because I guess in this futuristic scenario humans have colonized the moon, so people live there, and that's basically all I know about it. But I'm excited to read it because I love this author's writing style, so I will let you guys know if I like it, if it's comparable to The Martian, and if you should buy it yourself. But yeah. Last book that I bought over the past week is One More Thing by BJ Novak. This is a book of short stories, and if you don't know who BJ Novak is, this is what he looks like. He's in The Office. That's what he's kind of most famous for. He was a writer and an actor in The Office. He plays Ryan, which is a really annoying character, but whatever, we won't get into that. I used to own this book before my family's house burned down. I actually had it in hardcover because I think I got it sort of close to when it had just come out, and I really enjoyed the stories in it, but I only read it once. So, and it was years ago. So I don't know if I would still like it today. I would probably have to reread it, but I did really like it when I read it, I know that for sure, and I know that I used to own it. So this was on the table with this one where it was like buy two get the third free, and then one of my friends actually wanted to buy a book also, and so I was like, you can get your book and then I'll get these two books, we'll buy it all with my discount, it'll be totally worth it. So I basically just got this one because I owned it before, which, you know, whatever, but I like to own the books that I've read, and I've read this one, I liked it, so I picked it up. Okay, so that's all the books that I bought. Maybe I should talk a little bit about Goodbye Columbus, which I finally finished. I was reading it for like 2 weeks, and it's like a 200-page book, or it's about 300 pages, but it took me so long to read it because I was so busy this entire past like section of my life, basically. So here it is, Goodbye Columbus by Philip Roth. And if you don't know, I actually don't know that much about Philip Roth, but he died this past May. So he just recently passed away, and apparently he was like a super amazing author. He's Jewish, and he writes a lot about Judaism and just sort of being a Jewish American in modern times. Like, that's kind of what he was known for. And people loved him, and he was just a really good author in general. So I saw this in a used bookstore back in my hometown, so not up here, but I saw this book and I was like, I should probably read that. I think Goodbye Columbus was his debut novel, and I'm not exactly sure if the edition that I got is the way it is because I got a special edition, or if every copy of Goodbye Columbus is like this. But Goodbye Columbus is the name of the first story in this book. Basically, there's 6 stories. There's 6 stories in this book. One of them is Goodbye Columbus, which is the longest. I think I would consider it a novella, although I would have to double check on the exact word count of a novella. But Goodbye Columbus is 137 pages, and then there's 5 shorter stories that are each about like 30 to 40 pages long. And I really enjoyed all the stories. I'm not going to talk a lot about sort of like spoilers for this book because most of it was short stories, and to be honest, since I read it over the course of 2 weeks and it's only a 300-page book, I don't remember that much about it, which is kind of embarrassing because it's the only book that I read. But it was a good book. I think I would give it 3.5 or 4 stars out of 5, and I'm definitely going to continue reading more Philip Roth because this was his debut novel. So a lot of the times, like, a debut novel isn't a writer's best work. Even though I did like this book, I think I'm going to pick up like more of his work and see how his career sort of progressed, and he's very well known. So I only highlighted one line in this book, but it is interesting, kind of. It made me think. So if you haven't watched my first video, I like to highlight things in books. I'm an annotator. Usually I will underline things that I think are like good sort of one-liners, or they just sound poetic to me, or if they make me think. So this I underlined kind of because it made me think. So the part that I underlined says, if Albie despised him, it was because he was able to read his soul. So that I thought was kind of interesting. I just really like that part because he was able to read his soul. That's like an interesting concept, that someone's able to read someone else's soul. I guess that's why I highlighted it. But yeah, that was kind of a short review, but don't remember that much about this book because it's been like a crazy past couple weeks. Today is my first day of school. It's officially started. Not sure if I'm going to be posting as regularly. I'm trying to get this channel up and started, so let me know if you have any ideas for videos that you want to see, or things you want to hear me talk about, or if you even have any book recommendations or anything like that. Totally open to comments and suggestions. I am part of a book club with my family, and the book that we are reading the month of August is Anna Karenina, which, if you don't know, is about a 900-page book. I have not started it yet, so I may be absent from this channel for a little while I'm reading that, because I know I'm not going to be able to do reviews of anything else because I'm just going to be focused on reading that book. Anyway, you know the drill. Like this video, subscribe if you want to see more, and comment down below any ideas you have, or tell me what you liked about this video, what you didn't, and I will see you next time. So bye!